Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Following up on your eliminate versus innovate, Mr. Bryce, for years, Democrats in Congress and environmental activists have lobbied the banks to deny loans to oil and gas producers. On day one of the administration, President Biden joined their efforts. He restricted oil and gas permitting, he ended oil and gas leases on federal lands and waters, and we're now reaping the consequences of these policies. Will restricting loans to American oil and gas producers solve the issue of climate change?
No, sir, it won't. It will reduce exploration and production in the United States, and therefore potentially lead to higher prices and certainly more imported oil.
So will choking off access to our nation's oil and gas resources solve climate change?
No, sir.
And would you please discuss the economic consequences of trying to end oil and gas production here in the United States?
Well, I'm a native of Tulsa, which for about 20 minutes was known as the oil capital of the world. I think that title is now clearly Houston, Texas. But if we kill the domestic oil and gas industry, many of which are small producers, with a few individuals running what are known as stripper wells, it not only reduces overall crude and gas production in the U.S., it will result in higher unemployment. And for many towns and small towns in Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico, it could be a devastating blow. So there's no free lunch, sir.
I do want to put something into the record. Today, the Business Wire published an article titled, "Banning Exports of U.S. Crude Oil Would Likely Raise Gasoline Prices, Not Lower Them." This is according to Kurt Barrasso, who is Vice President of IHS Markit, said, "Without the ability to export U.S. crude, you enter a situation where there is a tighter global market." Goes on to say, "This would lead to supply chain and processing inefficiencies and possibly even higher gasoline prices as a direct result of the export ban." You ask unanimous consent to enter this article into the record, and I see no objection at this point.
Sir, if I could build on Mr. Nally's point, is that part of that is the mismatch between domestic crude quality and the crudes that are suited for American refineries, and I think he made that point well.
For all witnesses, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. On day one of the administration, President Biden killed the Keystone XL pipeline. No surprise there. I mean, he made a lot of press about it. He very proudly did that. The Keystone XL pipeline would have brought oil from Canada to the Midwest and the Gulf Coast. And now President Biden is considering shutting down the Line 5 pipeline, which currently ships oil from Canada to Michigan. Meanwhile, the administration has repeatedly begged the OPEC cartel and Russia to produce more oil. Any of you believe it's in the best interest of the United States to import more oil from OPEC and Russia and less from Canada? Nobody, record reflect, no one has raised their hand. Mr. Gold, I just had a couple of final questions before we end, if you could. The European Union does rely on Russia for about half of its natural gas supply. The number is expected to grow once the Nord Stream 2 pipeline begins shipping natural gas. Do you agree that U.S. liquefied natural gas provides our allies, especially those in Europe, a critically important alternative to Russian natural gas?
Yes, I do believe that.
And would you discuss just some of the benefits that U.S. liquefied natural gas provides Europe?
I think it provides optionality. And optionality is incredibly important when you are negotiating with existing suppliers, when you go into those negotiations knowing that you have the possibility to seek alternative sources of supply if those negotiations don't work out. I think together with the integration of the European gas market, that's been a very important force in helping a sort of competitive and open European gas market emerge in recent years.
And then would you agree that U.S. liquefied natural gas exports then have helped America's allies and trading partners truly reduce their greenhouse gas emissions?
I think in many cases you'll see that increased gas use in recent years has displaced more carbon-intensive fuels. You've seen that in Europe, you've seen that in some other countries around the world, and of course you've seen it in the United States of America.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm very, very grateful. This is going to conclude the morning's hearing. The hearing is adjourned. Members are going to have until the close of the business tomorrow to submit additional questions. For the record, And so I appreciate all your efforts. And under the previous order, the business meeting stands in recess. We'll reconvene on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. when we will also consider both the 2 nominations of this morning's agenda and the bills on the legislative agenda. Thank you all very, very much.